Ngā mihi nui ki a koutou katoa. Kia ora, everybody, and welcome to our panel. It's called Thrive in 2025, and we all know that 2024 has dished up some tough conditions, and some of you are probably limping to the finish line. The good news is you've almost made it, and also you're not alone. And so we wanted to take tonight as a chance to reset and rethink about the year ahead, how you can start it off on the right foot and set the tone for how next year is going to go, so that this time next year you can sit back with satisfaction at all that you have achieved. So if you want next year to be better than this year, you are in the right place. I'm going to be introducing you to our esteemed panel very shortly. But first, I just wanted to give you a little bit of a rough outline of what we're hoping to cover tonight. However, that is very much going to be driven by what you would like to know. But we work in financial strategy. So we want to give you some key strategies to fuel financial growth in 2025, but also how looking back can actually help you jump forward. But there's also a point at which we have to draw a line in the sand. So how do we get your finances in better shape and do it quickly so you feel that sense of motivation? And what are the opportunities that are out there lurking to take advantage of next year? Having said that, we obviously can't give personalised financial advice in a group setting. We're more than happy to give you personalised financial advice, but we have to do that one-on-one and get to know all the intricacies of your situation. So please don't confuse this for financial advice, but we are hoping the information that we impart tonight is going to be very useful. So let me introduce you to our wonderful panel. First up, Katie Wesney. She is going to bowl you over with her energy and passion for helping people get ahead. So brace yourselves. It's a lot of energy and it's coming your way, and it's very powerful when it is directed in your corner if you're one of her clients. She's got more than 20 years of experience in the finance sector, and she is our head strategic coach. So kia ora, Katie.
Kia ora, happy to be here.
Also joining us is Kirsty Healey. She has 25 years of experience in the finance sector. She's specialised in property investment, both professionally and personally as an investor and an infill property developer. And as a lover of yoga, I'm guessing she's also pretty well versed in the power of your mindset. So please welcome Kirsty Healey.
Good evening, everyone.
And last but not least, Karen Beckham, who has more years of experience in banking than she would probably like me to mention tonight. But it includes managing branches and dealing with high net worth individuals. So suffice to say, she has a huge amount of knowledge that she can share, particularly about home lending, which of course is the topic du jour. And her passion now, rather than just helping people secure debt, is helping them get out of debt. So please welcome Karen Beckham.
Evening, hi.
So just a word about questions. We welcome your questions, any and all that you've got tonight. If I could please just ask that you put them in the Q&A box. I just find it so hard to keep track of those that you put in the chat. By all means, chat to each other in the chat function, but if you have a question that you would like answered, please, please, please put it in the Q&A box, because then I'll know that we can get to it. So I hope you've got yourself somewhere comfy to sit. Let's get into it. I thought that I would start tonight with you, Katie. You see so many clients day in, day out. What are some of the things that you've observed, some of the commonalities? Because I guess we all like to think that we're hopefully not the only ones not feeling super amazing about our finances this year.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think that cash flow pressure has definitely been the predominant theme for 2024. High interest rates, inflation still kind of rearing its head. I've got 3 kids, and every time I go to the supermarket, I genuinely still feel like I'm literally bleeding money. And I actually think there's been an added pressure this year of job insecurity for lots of my clients as well. Um, Lots of them have seen lots of different rounds of redundancies, which makes people feel even more nervous. Coupled with that pressure, it's a lot and a lot of overwhelm.
Absolutely. And I suppose that begs the question, Kirsty, is if you are feeling a little battered and bruised, or maybe a little uncertain about what lies ahead. How do you shift that mindset from survival or fending off the hits as they come to actually being more proactive and being motivated to try and do things differently?
Yeah, really good question. And I'm going to definitely steal one of Katie's lines here. Is that line in the sand, as you mentioned earlier, Nadine? Let's put it there. And yes, we look backwards, but we look backwards to learn. We put that to bed. We look at strategies and ways that we can do things differently. How do we do that? We educate ourselves, and also we want to be asking for help, but also in the right places. And we don't really give ourselves a hard time about this. Actually, guess what? A whole bunch of people did go backwards. You are not alone. We have seen a lot of them. Um, I say every mistake is an opportunity to learn something. You always get something out of it. So it's all about, I think, that old adage, insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result, right? Let's do something different.
Yeah. What about you, Karen? How do you coach your clients to actually stay resilient and go, okay, what we did last year didn't get us ahead. How do we adapt that given all of the uncertainty so we can actually move forward?
I think when you've got a really good plan and you can have confidence in it, I think just sticking to what your budgets are, don't overextend yourself, and actually just sometimes just pat yourself on the back for the little wins that we have, because we all have little wins. And yeah, I think as everyone else has said, we're all in the same boat at the moment, and looking forward to 25 when we start to see the markets increase and, basically people feeling a bit more confident and happy about things. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And often I will say to my clients, Karen, because it can feel a little bit doom spiralish, and they are like down the garden path and none of it's happened as yet. And I love that saying. I think it's from the All Blacks, which I'm pretending like I'm sporty, I am not. Is that you always be where your feet are, and it's about thinking about the next right thing and the next right thing, and then your whole trajectory shifts. And I think the theme for tonight is we can control the controllables, and what are the key things we can control around our money to be better next year.
Okay, well, we're going to talk about some of those key things very shortly, but very briefly, I'd like to talk about motivation. So we've talked about kind of staying resilient, adapting financial plans, but most people wait for motivation to strike. And sometimes the motivation is that things are dire, but if things aren't dire, where do you source the motivation to make a change? What do you think, Katie?
I think that motivation piece is really interesting, and I think it's about really sitting down and thinking about, well, what is the life I want to lead going forward? And everyone's different, of course they are, but I think there's definitely some themes around financial plans. And I think for most of my clients, they get really excited about financial freedom. So just having a little bit more choice around the work they do, how long they work for. And then they try and build and flesh out that strategy that supports that to make sure that they have a really good infrastructure for success. Because it's really hard to just rely on willpower. We know that doesn't work, actually. It's about having better strategies and systems in place and making sure that you have really inspiring goals that motivate you when you're tired and hard. The systems support you, but those goals are like, yes, I'm going to get up tomorrow and I'm going to try harder.
We talked about the pillars, so let's talk about some of the pillars that you can put in place. I guess for a lot of people, one of them is the mortgage, which tends to be your biggest cost, whether it's rent or mortgage. But for the sake of the argument, let's talk about mortgages because interest rates are coming down and we're all like, hooray. But then the
Goodness.
next question, Karen, would be, what do I do with the money that was going on the mortgage just on interest? Now it isn't. What do I do with it?
Don't spend it. You've got to channel it towards your mortgage. Like at the moment, we're all looking for interest rates to come down, and they've started to come down, which is a great relief to a lot of people. But I think, looking back, we know that interest rates go up and they come down, they go up and they come down. And if we can try to remember that those payments we've already put aside for our mortgage, so let's try channeling them back into the mortgage if the rates are a bit lower. That actually then builds a bit of resilience for if they do go back up again, that you're already keeping to those payments, or you've put that money aside for your mortgage. So just channel it into your mortgage. Don't have that whole lifestyle spread where you decide, I'm just going to go out and start to spend more money. I can spend more money at the supermarket. I can start to buy the things I want to do. And just really keep focused on paying your mortgage off or achieving those financial goals that you've got.
So are you suggesting that when I go from a fixed rate in the 7s to maybe a fixed rate in the 5s, so there's a huge potential drop there, that I just keep my repayments at the level they were when I was paying 7%, or is there a better way to do it?
There are better ways of doing it, because, like, it's lovely that interest rates are coming down. We can see those savings come through. But if you pay the money back off your loan, you've got to also have the ability to draw it back at some stage. So sometimes there's more efficient ways of actually being able to manage your mortgage. And I really like the idea of being, pretty much a proactive manager of your mortgage. Just don't let it sit there, and don't just increase your mortgage payments, but just think, at some stage in the future, you might want to do something different. So you may want to draw that money back again. So, I think it's always good to have different structures with your mortgage. But yeah, definitely channel it into your mortgage.
I'm totally with you on that answer about flexibility, because I'm sure you've seen this as well, is if you pay extra on the mortgage and then you want it back again, but you've got to ask the bank for it, when you really need it is the time they're often going to say no.
Yeah, and lending criteria changes all the time. I think, the Reserve Bank brings in different changes. At the moment, we've got the TDIs coming in, so total debt to total income ratios, which may actually restrict you sometimes for borrowing money back again. And if you've had it before, you just assume that you can get it back, and you can't always do that. And your situation might change. There could be a redundancy, things like that happen, or there could be just a slight difference in changing jobs. So you want to make sure that you've got that buffer that you can draw back on if you need to in the future. So yeah, it's our money. We're trying to give it back to the bank to get down that debt, to reduce our interest rates, but we also need to make sure that we can draw it back when we need to.
Yeah, you want to be ready for life's curveballs, don't you?
Absolutely, yeah.
Totally. And I think also in terms of that optimal strategy, which obviously we all have a very firm view on in terms of what that should look like, I think having that optimal strategy and ensuring that you're not closing yourself off from other potential wealth creation opportunities is super important. So the example you used of like keeping your fixed repayments the same is never my preference for my clients, particularly those who are ambitious and really motivated to grow wealth, because for lots of people that looks like, well, I want to potentially buy another property if that suits their plan and their goals. And to facilitate that, they need to ensure that they can show good serviceability. So if they can keep those repayments that are fixed at as low as possible and pay off their mortgage in a more clever way, for example, using that revolving credit mechanism, then you're able to do both at the same time, which is I actually think that concurrent strategy is super important. Would you not think, Kirsty? Do you agree as well?
Absolutely agree. I mean, do you remember during COVID times, no one could travel. So they were taking all of that discretionary income and throwing it into spa pools and upgrading the car. And really, that opportunity cost was the progress that they missed out somewhere along the way, right?
Yeah,
So
word of regret in the 60s.
Absolutely. So there's a couple of different camps here, right? We've got the people who are really just surviving over the past couple of years or since COVID, who need a little bit of margin, where they need to actually bring some life back into their lifestyle. So yes, absolutely. Do that, but maybe you can split that difference. We can have some of that going towards, let's have some balance in our plan, please, and then let's put some towards the mortgage as well.
Kirsty, that's such a great point, because it's really important. If you feel like you have been living like a monk That's not sustainable, right? So you need some, unless you are a monk, then obviously horses for courses.
We're not judging. We're not judging. We're not judging.
But life in your lifestyle is really important. Just before we move on from mortgages, the number one question most people are asking at the moment is, how long should I be fixing for? I'm sure everyone has a different rationale for their recommendation at the moment. What do you think, Kirsty? Based on, we know it's coming down further next year,
Yeah.
but not for a while.
Yes.
What do you do in the meantime?
Absolutely. And there again are a couple of different camps here, because there are going to be those people that need to get a little bit of wiggle room in their budget. So there's not much tolerance there for them to play with. So what I'm talking to my clients about is short-term rates, because what has been indicated so far from the Reserve Bank is that they're going to be front-loading their easing cycle going into next year. It's going to be a good 3 months until we get that next meeting in February. So what does that look like? We've got a February meeting around the 19th, and we've got another on the 9th of April. So if you can hold out and tolerate floating rates have come down a tad. If you can tolerate that floating rate, then holding off and fixing for 6 months is going to be a great idea. But literally, if you can't tolerate that extra 20 points, basis points interest rate, on a $500,000 loan, that's, a difference of $1,000 per year. And that might be all the difference to your budget that you then need to hold tight onto.
That could easily be the life in your lifestyle, right? $1,000.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We're heading into a super expensive season, right? Christmas. Even though it comes around every year, it always surprises us somehow that we've got this big expense coming at the end of the year. And then it's summer and we're all a bit more relaxed and we're eating out more often, or we're seeing our friends more often. What would be your tips, Karen, for navigating this season without starting the new year, not only having to loosen your belt buckles a little bit, but having blown everything that's in your wallet and starting on the back foot?
Yeah, well, look, I'm a shopper. Like, my husband actually tells everybody I've got a black belt in shopping. So for me, I have to kind of really restrain myself. I can't go into the shops at the moment because I am just too tempted by everything. So my strategy is I shop online. And I think really just trying to set budgets, don't buy stuff for people that they just don't want it, really think about what somebody wants, try to get them something that's quality, and, just limit your budget so that when you don't sort of have that big spending spree and then suddenly you're on that sort of, rush and you're out spending and then it carries on. So I think you really need to try to set yourself a budget, be a bit controlled. For me, staying away from the shops is what works for me. And then next year, I haven't changed a lot of my habits. I'm trying to sort of stay nice and even. So I think that's the way that you can sort of carry through the season, survive the season, and start 2025, reasonably level.
And Katie, I know you've got tween and teenage kids, and so expectations run high, right, as to what Christmas looks like. So how do you manage that without being Scrooge mum, but also not blowing the budget?
Yeah, so my daughters have kindly built Google presentation slide decks for me with links in terms of what they would like. I really would like this. My 14-year-old son just sends me like random text messages, just between girls and boys. But for us, they're very aware of the budget that we set for them individually. Collectively as a family, we set a budget for Christmas. And I have an Excel spreadsheet and I just divide that by my children, but also my sister, mum and dad, etc. So I find it easier versus just yeah, if it's too wafty, I find it hard and I'll overspend. But with my son, he's actually asked for quite a big ticket item. He's asked for an electric scooter, which I'm trying to make peace with because it feels scary to me as a mum. But what he's doing is, that is outside the budget for the kids for Christmas. So we've said, yes, we'll buy it for you, but you've got to go halves. So he's selling his bike. He's got his Xbox, his old Xbox, and his old headset on Trade Me to try and procure some money, just in terms of to kind of get his side of the bargain as well, which is great because they're already off on holidays, so he needs something to do. So he's madly trying to sell everything around my house to try and get this darn scooter. But again, there's lessons in that as well, isn't there? Just in terms
Exactly,
of,
yeah. You just have to be careful that everything that's not
I
nailed down
know.
hasn't been put on marketplace.
I know.
Um,
So yeah, I think it's about like anything, having a plan, having upper limits, and just making it work. Because I actually think that's one of the key lessons we're trying to teach our kiddies, isn't it? That there are limited resources in the world and at home, and we make decisions around that as a family. So again, that's what we're trying to role model for the kiddies.
Yeah, and Kirsty, it's not actually limited to gifts either, is it? It's like when it comes to hosting Christmas Day, it's an incredibly expensive, what can be. I mean, has anyone seen the price of a ham recently? How do you
Absolutely.
navigate that?
Yeah, food is so expensive in New Zealand, isn't it? And you're absolutely right. It's not just presents, it's everything else. And for us in our family, it seems like every year while inflation's been high, we just cut back on birthdays and Christmas for the adults, and now it's all about the kids. And now we've just introduced fun experiences. So we typically try and get one amazing present per kid, and then we do like a really fun treasure hunt around the garden, lots of clues. Kids think it is just
Love that.
outstanding. Because they're having fun playing with all their cousins. We're not having to provide, lots of junk from Temu that's never going to be used again. It ends up getting binned at the end of the year. So happy adults, happy kids.
I love that. You don't have to save the treasure hunt till Easter. You can do it at Christmas too. What a
So good.
fantastic idea.
Absolutely. And then I love when I have talked to one particular performance coach, and she's just like, there's no gifts this year. It's hugs all round.
I can't
So
imagine the
good.
look on my
Okay.
nephew's faces if I said, come over here. Your present is just a
It's
hug from
me.
me.
Katie, you should try that with your kids. See what they
Yeah, not far, Karen, not far.
Maybe save that one for grandma.
Yeah,
Mm.
particularly my 14-year-old son. I could just imagine. Why are you torturing me? No.
I can get away with a lot cheaper this Christmas because my son's only 14 months old, so he doesn't really know.
Ride that
So
wave.
he's probably
Yeah.
going to get kitchen implements wrapped up and put in his stocking. That's
Oh,
what he likes to play with.
I love it.
love
I
it.
love it.
Let's talk about the opportunities that lie ahead that you can foresee in 2025. Katie, what would you look into your crystal ball for us? Because everyone wants to know, are we buy, sell, sell? What are the things that we should be looking out for as opportunities?
Yep. So one of the biggest opportunities for us in 2025 will be the lower interest rates, which frees up cash flow to pay off our unproductive debt or our home debt faster. But I think for people who are wanting to grow wealth and they have the opportunity to do so, particularly around property, I'm really encouraging for my clients to think about what that might look for their individual strategy, because we know that one of the biggest drivers of property price in New Zealand historically, I don't have a crystal ball, I wish I did, has historically been decreasing interest rates. And for a lot of my clients, certainly, they don't necessarily have wads of cash in the bank to invest, but they do have equity in their home. And I do believe that leverage piece is really important if you are serious about growing your wealth. So I think there are a lot of opportunities in that space, but you've got to be ready and you've got to be really clinical around how you execute it. And so having that good plan, making sure that you are resilient, that you've got that optimal mortgage structure and strategy. And again, alongside that, looking at wealth opportunities, that's what I would be focusing on.
Kirsty, I guess the big question, people ask this at all points in the cycle. If you're going to try and grow wealth through property, is now the right time to buy an
Oh,
investment property?
that old chestnut. Yeah. Well, look, I'm a passionate property investor. I've been investing for over 20 years. You're asking the right person because it doesn't take much to convince me to buy property. But absolutely, it has to be the right property. And the saying, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is today. That is investment property as well. It's not about timing the market. It's about time in the market when it comes to investment property. So essentially, we want to be able to get you into a position where we can get you into a property, but we also want to ensure that you can hold it at least for a cycle. So it's all around setting you up with the right support to be able to do that.
It's a really good point, because if there's one thing that matters when it comes to timing, Karen, it's that it's the right time for you. And that would be determined by the position that you manage to get yourself in, right?
Yeah.
And the plan you have to sustain and continue to improve that.
Yeah, and I think at the moment we're seeing the banks have dropped their testing rates, which means that you can afford to borrow probably a little bit more than you could. In fact, this week, if you go and if you can get to the banks and get a pre-approval, they're all pretty busy at the moment, they probably can lend you a little bit more. So yeah, I think it's a really good time to be looking at doing something, because things are just starting to get more positive out there. If you've got the equity in your home, the banks can lend you the money. You feel really confident that, as Kirsty said, that you can buy something and you can hold it through the cycle. So, you don't want to be selling when, things get glum. You want to be able to hold on to it. So if you can do that, absolutely fantastic. Position yourself that you can do that now.
Just a reminder to those who are in the audience that we welcome your questions live. So if there's something that has occurred to you in the last 25 minutes, if you've got a burning question, there's no such thing as a stupid one. Trust me, we've all heard them all, and we're happy to answer them. So if you want to pop them in the Q&A box, please fire away. Otherwise, we will continue working with the ones that have been sent in already. But feel free to chip in and make this an active live conversation. If there's one small action, because we're all about action, right? You can watch webinars, you can listen to podcasts, you can read all the articles under the sun and improve your financial knowledge. But the thing that shifts the dial isn't knowing, it's doing. So I'd love to know from each of you, what is one small action that, if you're in the audience tonight, you could take that would actually improve your finances in 2025? Let's start with you, Katie.
Cut up your credit card.
Yeah. Really? That would be
Ouch.
challenging for some people.
I
So
know,
give us the
aren't
rationale.
I nasty? I think that it's a behavioral economics principle that people spend more than they would otherwise by using credit cards, just because it's a less transparent form of payment. You swipe your card, if I paid, who really knows, who cares? And it's just really hard to know where you're at. And again, the pain of spending is hugely diminished. You will always do better when you feel that pain of spending, you know where you're at. And again, you've got that goal. So cut up your credit card. You don't need it.
I can hear people shouting from here, but what about my points?
We fritter about 15%, or we spend about 15% more by using credit cards. You don't need the points. Make progress, get ahead.
Yeah. And actually, if you look at what the points get you, the rewards are never better than
Diddly squat.
2%, I think,
Yeah,
of your
diddly
spend.
squat. Yeah.
I ran some numbers for a client who was dead set that they must use a
Hacking
credit
the
card.
system.
So they put $175,000 through their, so they're not a small earner. They put $175,000 through the family credit card every year, and it got them $1,500 in air points. So like $1,500 is $1,500. Well done, you. But how much extra did you spend on
Yeah,
the different
that
clubs
is
that
a
you were
shatang of
spending?
spending. A shatang
Yeah,
of spending. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Sheesh, Magesh. Yeah.
Okay, so we're cutting up our credit cards. Kirsty, what else are we doing? What's the one thing that you would say?
So this has been a challenge for me in the past. So I like to pass the message on and pay it forward that please stop using PayWave and please get yourself a chip card. And all you need to do is put that little sucker into the machine. You're going to save yourself somewhere between 1.8% and 2.5% of every transaction. $20 per 1,000 that you're spending, which over Christmas, obviously that can add up really quickly. So it literally takes a few seconds longer.
And make
I know
that
that.
chip card a debit card, not a credit
Yes.
card.
Thank you, yes.
This is my personal bugbear too, because almost everywhere will charge you a surcharge for tap and go, and sometimes for a credit card too. So two good tips there. We're cutting up our credit card and we're getting a debit card that we're going to insert into the machine and not tapping and going.
We're so lazy now, hey. And I think
Totally.
that, yeah,
It's a false economy though, isn't it?
I know, but I think that in terms of plan design for our clients, you lean into that laziness because, again, it's all about creating better systems and friction. And again, it's too easy to spend on credit cards, right? So we're trying to remove that. And then I think often about having that better structure, you just make it harder to spend money, right? In terms of removing access from accounts. I think that is hugely impactful. So you kind of lean into the laziness. I don't have my credit card saved anywhere, that I do have when we go overseas. And again, it just means that when it's so easy to spend money when you're sat on the couch, kind of tired with these amazing Black Friday sales, you just got to set up that better environment, don't you think?
And that's where you lean into the laziness. You're like,
Yeah.
I am too lazy to
Totally.
go to the
Yes.
wardrobe, get
I
my wallet out, and
know.
come back and input my credit card
I
details. So that is your
know.
line of defense. Don't have it in your
I
wallet.
know.
Take it out with
Same when I
you.
go to the supermarket. I'm trying to be more healthy, so I do not buy ice cream because I cannot be asked going, like to go to like the dairy after dinner. But if I had it in the freezer, I'm eating the ice cream. We lean into laziness.
Yeah. Okay. Except I would definitely be down the road to the dairy, but that's just me.
I'm lazier than you, my friend.
Karen, what would be your one good tip to start the year on the right foot?
I think if you are like me and you tend to spend, I think doing shopping, your grocery shopping online is actually really powerful because, when you get to you go in and you want to get 3 or 4 items and you end up seeming to leave with a whole bag of things that just cost $150. So if you do your shopping online, you can actually see what the bill is as you're going, rather than getting to the checkout and then, you've just spent an extra $100 than you intended to. So I think, if you are a person that does tend to, go down the aisles and go, oh, that looks nice, I'll try that, picking bits and pieces out, shopping online for your groceries is actually quite a good strategy. And
Absolutely.
it removes all those things that they put in the way that you want to buy because you've just noticed them. You've never seen them before. It might be a chocolate bar or it might be whatever it is that they'd set out to tempt you. That would be my.
I think that's a great tip because basically you want to go into the supermarket as infrequently as possible because they are set out to derive as much out of you. I think they call it the tricep test. They assume that people will keep going until they can't hold the basket up anymore, and then they'll go, oh, I already came in for one thing, I better go. So just don't walk in there. That's a great tip, fantastic tip. There's a great question here from Lily about this period. How do you help clients set clear financial goals during this time? Before holiday time, before New Year, and what tools do you recommend or use to track progress? And she says it's a very good talk, so thank you, Lily. Kirsty, how do you set clear financial goals at this time of year, and how do you make sure that you stick to them?
Yeah, really good question. And I think, as you alluded to before, or Katie alluded to, it has to be a family decision, right? There has to be really open communication in your household, get on the same page in terms of let's plan first before we actually action. And let's have those numbers down so that when we head into the shop, we're not distracted by all of those, extra spends that like tend to tip us over the edge in terms of that budget that we've set for ourselves. So yeah, trade, basically we want to plan your trade and trade your plan.
I love that.
Yeah. And Karen, you'd be seeing lots of clients at the moment that are about to head off into this period. How are you challenging them to say, okay, we're not being Scrooges, but here's the parameters. How do we stick to them?
I love the way that we actually structure our bank account structure with Enable Me. So, having an account that is specifically for your day-to-day spend, and that is the money that's sitting there for you. And that's quite visual because you can actually see the bank balance and you're not meant to top it up. So that's the money you've got to spend. And if you don't have it, you actually have to be really conscious about whether or not you want to buy whatever that thing is and sacrifice something else. So for me, just seeing what's in that bank account and being really aware of what there is to spend and not to spend. So yeah, being quite visual with your balance and just understanding that's what you've got and that's it.
Another thing I'm keen to know, Katie, is if you're anything like me, you start the new year with a hiss and a roar and you're like, I'm at the gym every day, I'm eating so well,
Yeah.
yay me. And then by about the 15th, I'm over it.
Yeah, I'm done with this shit.
How do you avoid making that same mistake with your finances, starting with gusto and then just fizzling out?
Yeah, you just can't have a plan that's based around deprivation. You just can't. It's got to be sustainable. And I think about understanding well and truly the things that you spend money on that make you feel happy is a really important place to start. And I always say to my clients, you're allowed at least 3 non-negotiable costs. So, for example, in my plan, those things are my travel, my kids' activity, and my cleaner. They're my non-negotiable costs. So I'm willing to sacrifice takeaways, coffees, etc. If I can make sure I can have my travel, that's really motivating for me. So I think it's understanding what are the things I spend money on that make me feel happy, set upper limits on those, and then everything else, see if you can channel as productively as possible, and then you sustain the plan.
Exactly. And it's about finding out the things that actually make you happy, because then it's not about deprivation. You're just doing a little bit of negotiation with yourself. I'm not going to do this thing that doesn't shift the dial in terms of how I feel about my life, because it gives room for this thing that does
Yeah.
bring me alive.
Absolutely.
Yep, so true. And I think that often people get Lily, people get a little bit apprehensive around working to a plan that they're going to be judged and they're going to have to live a smaller life and they'll be miserable. But studies show, Lily, it's the exact opposite. When you sometimes distance out some of that pleasure, you actually enjoy it more. Like I always give this example to my clients, get in the habit of buying your lunch every day, but by the time it comes to Friday, you're like, ugh, I don't know what I feel like. I'm done with everything. Versus when you say, I'm going to buy my lunch once a week, you kind of plan it out because you don't want to waste it. And I think you can do that across everything that you spend your money on. And again, the intentionality, living that purposeful life, so important.
Yeah. And it's not about perfection, it's about progress.
Perfection doesn't exist.
Yeah. A couple more questions that we'll quickly answer before we need to wrap things up. This is, I guess, a comment versus a question, but I would encourage this person, it's an anonymous attendee, to come and see us. They're saying, got a small mortgage portion due to expire over Christmas from a fixed term. We can pay it off in full, but are now thinking about changing it to a revolving credit account so we can draw it down again if we need the money again in future. Karen, what would you say to this person, and what do they need to know about a revolving credit? Because that's something you actually have to apply to the bank to receive, don't you?
Yeah, revolving credit facilities are fantastic to use if you're quite disciplined. It's awesome. If you can channel your income to go into your revolving credit, so you're actually reducing the costs by having the money sort of building up in that account. You do have to apply for it. Generally, the banks don't mind you having a revolving credit. They may not give you a huge limit. So as long as, the amount is not too big, probably quite a good strategy at the moment. It's something that I would definitely be recommending to people if they have got the money available, and then they can just draw it back when they need to. So it's good to have that buffer there.
A really good point you made there, though, Karen, about some people call them revolting credits, right? Because if you're not disciplined and you do just treat it like a big slush fund, what you
Yes.
end up doing is paying more in interest
Yeah.
and going backwards instead of forwards. So
And making the banks even more profitable.
exactly,
Yeah.
and we
Absolutely.
all know they don't need that.
They
So
do not.
they are a fantastic tool, but they have to be accompanied with the rest of the financial discipline and the systems to make best use of them. Otherwise, you just end up paying more in interest. And what is the point of that?
Boo.
Yes, exactly. Now, I guess a lot of people are looking at the date going 3 weeks till Christmas, almost exactly. Why would I do anything now? I'll start again in February. I'd love to know just a quick word from each of you. Why would you take action before the kids go back to school and you've got a summer tan? Why would you book anything now when you could deal with it later? What do you think, Kirsty?
Yeah, well, I guess my question back is why wouldn't you? Because you're missing out on some amazing progress between now and next year. And if you can set yourself up really well now with an optimized bank account structure and mortgage structure that's going to get you ahead, that's going to get you 2 months ahead of the curveball. So yeah, I'm a huge, a big fan, obviously. Don't put off tomorrow what you can do today. Absolutely get stuck in now.
Yeah, and Katie, I know that you have been putting a rocket up some people who are waiting for inspiration to strike sometime around March. Why would you do it now?
Yeah, because that inspiration ain't coming. If it's not here now, it's not going to come in March. And I think that if you're of that mindset, and I've been there before with my health, etc., you're like, well, I'm going to be good in January. You're like almost giving yourself permission to eat lots of shitty food, spend a truckload of money. So you're in that much worse of a position when you do come to address it, if you come to address it. Because I think for lots of people, they wait for the stars to align, for these perfect conditions to appear. They will never appear. If you're waiting for that, you're waiting for a very long time. Best time to start is now. You get a jump start on next year. And it's kind of like, how do you set yourself up for success of a day? Well, you'd have a really good night routine. I think that's really important. You set yourself up for success. And that's what we're trying to do with our clients. And in January, we get super busy because everyone's like, right, that was crap. Let's have a better 2025. So I think that if you can get ahead of the crowd, you are getting all that prep work done this side of Christmas, and then you just hit the ground running and set yourself up for success and more choice.
Not only are people waiting for the stars to align, I think they also fear that some sort of new plan is going to be some nil by mouth, unfun
No, wrong
lifestyle
plan.
with no life in it.
No, wrong
That
plan.
is, that's not going to sustain you post
Yeah.
the end of January. So I think
Yeah.
that is a fantastic note to end it on. And I think if you are listening, I think you need to take advantage of this because you've joined us and listened to us tell bad jokes and try and inspire you over the past 45 minutes. There is an offer.
Kind of good.
Yeah, I think you've done brilliant.
We dug deep.
We did. Is that if you want to scan the QR code that's on your screen now, you can get booked in for your first consultation, whether that's between now and Christmas or you get one of those rare slots early in the new year. Now is the time to take the bull by the horns and all those other analogies about making the next year better than the last. Don't put it off. Don't go backwards in the meantime and create a bigger mess to clean up. We strike while the iron is hot, not waiting for inspiration. So you'll get that discounted to $149, which is valued, that meeting, at $400. I think it's a game-changing meeting. And I would simply encourage you to make the most of that offer. And let's actually make 2025 the year that we thrive, rather than the year that we think about maybe at some point getting around to having a go at thriving. So please join me in thanking our panelists. I actually realized I never introduced myself, but never mind.
We know you. We know you.
Ben Nadine Higgins. I'm also a financial advisor
You're
at
amazing.
Enable Me. But thank you also to Katie Wesney, Kirsty, Healey and Karen Beckham, who have been a fantastic panel tonight. Thank you all for taking part of your evening to join us. Have a wonderful Christmas, and we look forward to seeing you for your consultation in the new year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Thanks.